If I pay, can you be my dad? A desperate girl makes a dangerous offer to the most feared man in town. What unfolds is a protection that reshapes lives and rewrites all the rules. The cost of this deal? Everything. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The rain wasn't falling so much as it was attacking Pincer's Landing, a tired town that smelled of wet asphalt and forgotten dreams. It was in this weather that a small, soaked shadow detached itself from the side of the hardware store and walked straight into the mouth of the wolf. The Steel Ravens clubhouse was a converted auto garage. The sign above the door, a faded raven with a wrench in its talons, was barely visible through the downpour. Music and the low rumble of men's voices leaked out into the night. Lily, aged 9 with a spirit older than the hills, pushed the heavy door open. The conversation died. A dozen pairs of eyes, some curious, most annoyed, turned to the dripping child in the doorway. She clutched a small, pink, glittery purse to her chest like a shield. She didn't look at the others. Her gaze scanned the room and landed on the man at the scarred pool table. He was tall, with dark hair tied back, and hands that looked like they'd argued with too many engines and lost a few times. A simple patch on his cut read, "Ledger, the president." "Hey kid, lost?" a biker named Paul called out, his tone more amused than threatening. Lily ignored him. She walked straight to Ledger, her sneakers squeaking on the concrete floor. She stopped in front of him, tilting her head all the way back to meet his eyes. They were a cool, calculating gray. "Are you Ledger?" Her voice was surprisingly steady. "I am." His voice was like gravel under a boot. "The rumor is you don't deal in cash, you deal in settled debts." A faint ripple went through the club members. Ledger didn't move. That's one way to put it. Lily took a deep breath. This was it. She thrust the glittery purse up towards him. "I have $127. It's my whole life savings, from birthdays and Christmas. I want to hire you." A chuckle came from the bar. Ledger's gaze didn't waver. "To do what?" "To be my dad." The words hung in the smoky air. The chuckles stopped. "For 1 week. My mom's new boyfriend, Mark. He gets mean, he yells, he breaks things. Last night he put a hole in the wall next to my mom's head. I just need you to be my dad for 1 week, long enough to scare him off. So he leaves and never comes back." Ledger looked at the offered purse. He looked at the girl's face, pale but determined, with a faint bruise on her cheekbone she probably thought her hair hid. He saw the tremble in her arms, not from cold, but from sheer force of will. In his world, every move was a calculation. Risk versus reward, protection for payment. This was the worst bargain he had ever heard. The potential for endless complications was astronomical. The reward was a child's piggy bank. He didn't take the money. Slowly he reached out, but his large, calloused hand closed not around the purse, but around Lily's small wrist. Gently, he guided her hand back towards her own chest. He folded her fingers over the damp, glittery fabric. "The deal is this," he said, his voice low, filling the silent room. "You keep your money." Lily's face fell, her brave mask cracking, but then he spoke again. "I'll be your dad." Her eyes widened, a flicker of desperate hope. "But my fee," he continued, "is your report card every month, every single one, and your promise, right here in front of my brothers, to never make a deal this stupid again. You don't offer everything you have to a stranger. You come, you ask for help. Understood?" Lily nodded, unable to speak, her fingers clenched tight around her purse. "Good." Ledger finally looked away from her, his eyes sweeping his men. "Paul, David, you're with me. The rest of you, business as usual. The Ravens' empire doesn't run on pity." He looked back down at Lily. "Where do you live, kid?" "Apartment 4B on Cedar," she whispered. "Let's go settle a debt." The apartment building was a sad, gray box. Ledger, with Lily's hand securely in his, followed by Paul and David, two mountains of leather and quiet menace, walked up to the second floor. The door to 4B was slightly ajar. Raised voices came from inside. A man's, sharp and angry, a woman's, pleading. Lily flinched. Ledger squeezed her hand once, then let go. He didn't knock. He pushed the door open. The scene was a sad classic. A lamp was knocked over. A framed photo lay shattered on the floor. A man named Mark, wiry with cruel eyes, was standing over a woman, Elena, who was pressed against the kitchen counter, her face streaked with tears. "What the hell?" Mark snarled, turning towards the door. His bluster died in his throat as he took in the three bikers filling the doorway, with Lily peeking from behind Ledger's leg. "Lily," Elena gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Evening," Ledger said, his tone conversational, yet it felt like the first chill of winter. "I'm Ledger, Lily's father." He let the words sit. "I hear there's been a misunderstanding about the welcome she and her mother deserve." Mark tried to puff up. "I don't know who you are, but you need to get the hell out of my apartment." "Your apartment?" Ledger took a single step inside. Paul and David flanked the doorway, arms crossed. "See, my understanding is the lease is in Elena's name, which makes this her apartment. You're a guest. And from the look of things," his eyes flicked to the broken glass, the hole in the wall, a terrible one. Mark's bravado was fading fast, replaced by the primal fear of a smaller animal facing a much larger predator. "You can't just come in here." "I already did." Ledger's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Here's the new arrangement. You're going to pack your things, the things you came with, nothing that belongs to Elena or Lily. You're going to walk out of this building, and you're never going to come within 5 blocks of them again." "Or what?" Mark spat, but his voice cracked. Ledger didn't answer, he just looked at him. It was a look that spoke of dark alleys and finality. Paul cracked his knuckles. The sound was like gunshots in the quiet room. Mark broke. He scurried to the bedroom, emerging minutes later with a duffel bag. He shoved past, not making eye contact with anyone, and disappeared down the stairs. The tension drained from the room, leaving a heavy silence. Elena stared at Ledger, a mixture of fear, gratitude, and confusion on her face. She was beautiful in a worn-out way, with Lily's same resilient eyes. Who are you really?" she asked. "Ledger, Lily hired me." He nodded to his daughter, who ran to her mother and hugged her tight. "The terms are settled. I'm her dad now." Elena looked from her daughter to the terrifying man in her living room. "What does that mean?" "It means," Ledger said, his voice softening just a fraction as he looked at Lily, "she has protection. You both do. It's not a one-week deal." He reached into his cut and pulled out a simple black cell phone. He placed it on the counter. "My number is the only one in there. If anything bothers you, you call, day or night." He turned to leave. "Wait," Elena said, "we can't pay you." Ledger paused at the door. The payment is her report card and a promise already made. He glanced back. "We'll be in touch." And with that, the three bikers left, leaving behind the smell of rain, leather, and a safety so profound it made Elena's knees weak. Life in Pincer's Landing began to change, one subtle shift at a time. Ledger was a man of his word. The next day, a Ravens prospect showed up with a new deadbolt for the apartment door and fixed the hole in the wall. A week later, on a Saturday morning, Ledger's Harley rumbled to a stop outside the apartment. He wasn't wearing his full cut, just a leather jacket, but his presence was undeniable. He took Lily out for breakfast, not at a diner, but to a biker-friendly cafe where the Ravens often did business. He sat her in a booth, ordered her pancakes, and while he drank his coffee, he had quiet, gruff conversations with men who came to the table. They'd nod respectfully at Lily. "This is my daughter, Lily," Ledger would say, and that was that. She was under the protection of the Steel Ravens. The first report card arrived. Lily brought it to the clubhouse, her heart pounding. Ledger took it, studied each grade with intense focus. A C in math made him grunt. "We'll fix that," he said. He produced a worn textbook from a shelf. "Paul's good with numbers. He'll tutor you Tuesdays after school, here." It wasn't a request. It was the new rule. And strangely, Lily loved it. Paul, a bear of a man with tattooed knuckles, was surprisingly patient with fractions. Elena was the harder nut to crack. She was wary, terrified of trading one kind of trouble for another. But the trouble never came. What came instead was an unexpected peace. The landlord, a slimy man named Mr. Jenkins, suddenly stopped, dropping by for inappropriate chats after Ledger had a single, quiet word with him. The local gang that sometimes loitered near the bus stop found other places to be. One evening, Elena's old car finally gave up its ghost. She was stranded at the grocery store, panicking about the cost of a tow truck and repairs. With trembling fingers, she used the black phone. Ledger and David arrived in a tow truck with the Ravens logo on the side. They didn't say much. They hooked up the car, drove it to the Ravens garage, a legitimate business front, and Ledger told her, "It'll be done tomorrow. David will give you a ride home." David, a silent man with a kind face, drove her and the groceries back. As she got out, he said, "Ledger's good with his word. You don't gotta be scared of us, Elena." That night, for the first time in years, Elena slept through the night. Weeks turned into months. The arrangement became part of life. Ledger was a constant, gruff presence. He came to Lily's school play, sitting in the back, a stark, intimidating figure among the chatting parents. He clapped, a single, sharp sound when she bowed. The chemistry between Ledger and Elena was a slow, simmering thing, charged but always kept in check. It was in the way he'd hand her a bag of groceries, saying, "Prospect bought too much," and his fingers would brush hers. It was in the way she'd bring a pot of coffee to the garage on a cold afternoon, her cheeks flushing under the gaze of the other bikers who respectfully called her ma'am. It was in the long, silent looks they'd share when he dropped Lily off, a conversation happening without words. One night, Lily was staying at a friend for a sleepover. Elena was sitting on her porch steps when Ledger's bike rumbled down the street. He wasn't expected. He killed the engine and walked up, holding 2 paper cups. "Coffee," he said, handing her one, "from Marta's, the good place across town." "Thank you," she said, her voice soft. He sat down beside her, not too close, but his presence was a tangible heat. "Quiet night," he said. "Too quiet sometimes," she admitted. They sat in silence, listening to the crickets. "You know," Elena said after a while, "I spent so long being afraid. Of Mark, of being alone, of not being enough for Lily. Now, I'm afraid of this." "Of what?" "Of how safe I feel. With you, it feels like borrowing trouble." Ledger stared straight ahead, his profile sharp in the dim light. "The Steel Ravens aren't going anywhere. Our business is our business. But this," he gestured between them and towards the apartment, "this is separate. This is mine, and I protect what's mine." The word mine hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Elena's breath caught. It wasn't a claim of ownership, but a declaration of fierce, unwavering responsibility, and something more. "Why Ledger?" she asked, the question she'd held for months finally spilling out. "Why us? Why this?" He was quiet for a long time. "My old man was a lot like Mark," he said finally, the words rough. "The world's full of people who take from the weak. The Ravens, we take from those who have too much, sometimes. But Lily, she didn't ask me to take. She offered everything she had to protect her mother. That kind of courage," he shook his head. "That's a currency I understand. That's a debt worth settling forever." He turned his head to look at her. In the darkness, his eyes were less calculating, more simply intense. The space between them crackled. He slowly raised a hand and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering for a heartbeat on her cheek. Her skin burned where he touched her. She leaned into it, just slightly. But he pulled his hand back, standing up. The moment was too big, too dangerous to step into fully. "Not yet. Lock your door, Elena," he said, his voice back to its usual gravel. He walked to his bike, the spell broken but the charge left hanging in the air. The balance of power in the neighborhood was reshaping. The Ravens had always been there, a neutral, intimidating force running their legitimate garage and their less legitimate side ventures. But now they had a stake. A little girl and her mother in apartment 4B. When a new drug crew tried to move into the Ravens' territory, they made the mistake of setting up a deal point near Lily's bus stop. Ledger didn't send a message. He delivered it personally with Paul and David. It was swift, brutal, and final. The message was clear. This street, this block, this whole damn sector is under our protection now. Not just our business, our family. The local cops, who had an uneasy truce with the Ravens, noticed. Detective Miller, a weary man who knew the score, called Ledger in. "You're getting bold, Ledger," Miller said, leaning back in his chair. "This used to be a clean, quiet operation. Now you're playing vigilante for a single mom." Ledger stared at him, unblinking. I'm maintaining order on my street. You're welcome. Crime stats must be down. They are, Miller admitted grudgingly. Just don't let this dad thing make you soft or make you think you're a hero. Your empire is built on sand and the tide's always coming in. My empire is fine, Ledger said, standing to leave. And my family is off limits. Spread the word. The word spread. At the annual town summer fair, the true shift became visible to everyone. Lily wanted to go, but Alina was nervous about the crowds, the drinking, the potential for Mark to somehow be there. Ledger simply said, "We are going." They went as a unit. Ledger, Alina and Lily, Paul, David and their families came too. The Ravens didn't wear their cuts that night, but everyone knew who they were. They were just a family. Ledger won Lily a giant stuffed bear at the shooting gallery. He shared a lemonade with Alina, their hands touching on the cup. He nodded to other residents who nodded back, a new respect in their eyes. He wasn't just the scary biker boss anymore. He was Lily's dad, Alina's protector. A part of the community's fabric, for better or worse. It was at the fair that they saw Mark again. He was across the midway, drunk, bragging to some equally sorry friends. He saw Alina, saw Lily laughing with the giant bear, saw Ledger standing close behind them, a silent sentinel. Their eyes met across the crowd. All the color drained from Mark's face. He turned and stumbled away, disappearing into the night, a ghost finally banished for good. Alina let out a breath she didn't know she was holding and leaned back, her shoulder pressing against Ledger's chest. He didn't move away. He let her stay there, a solid wall at her back. The crisis that cemented everything came with the new school year. A group of older kids from a rougher neighborhood had been bullying Lily, stealing her lunch money, calling her names, biker brat being the kindest. She hadn't told anyone, trying to be tough, to handle her own debts. But it escalated. They pushed her into a muddy ditch after school, ruining her new backpack, a gift from Ledger. She came home, covered in mud, tears of rage and humiliation mixing with the dirt on her face. Alina was furious, ready to call the school, but Lily sobbed, "It won't help. They'll just do it worse." Alina picked up the black phone. Ledger arrived within 10 minutes. He listened, his face becoming a cold, still mask. He knelt in front of Lily. "Names," he said, his voice quiet. She whispered them. He nodded, "Go clean up, kid." When she was gone, he looked at Alina. "I'll handle it." Ledger, "No violence, they're just kids." "I know what they are," he said. His method, however, was pure Ledger. He didn't go to the school, he didn't go to the kids. The next afternoon, the three main bullies were walking home when two gleaming Harley-Davidson motorcycles fell into step beside them on the quiet street. Ledger and Paul. The bikes purred like large metal cats. The boys froze, terrified. Ledger shut off his engine. He looked down at them. "You know who I am." The tallest boy, James, managed a shaky nod. "You know Lily is my daughter." Another nod. "Good, then you understand the problem. You've been creating a debt. You owe her a new backpack. You owe her an apology. And you owe her your promise to never speak to her again." He leaned forward slightly. "I collect on debts. If I have to come back for this one, I won't be talking to you. I'll be talking to your fathers. And I know where they work. Do we have an understanding?" The boys couldn't even nod. They were so scared. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare. The next day, a brand new, expensive backpack appeared on Alina's porch with a scribbled apology note. The bullying stopped, permanently. The story leaked, and Lily's social standing at school became legendary. No one messed with the girl whose dad was Ledger. That night, Alina went to the clubhouse. She found Ledger in the garage office, going over invoices. She stood in the doorway until he looked up. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick. He stood up. "She's my kid." "I know." Alina took a step into the room. The charged space between them was back, stronger than ever. Months of looks, of brief touches, of unspoken promises, boiled over. She walked right up to him, placed her hands on his chest, and looked up into his eyes. "She's not the only one who's yours." He didn't hesitate this time. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a claiming, a release, a culmination of all the tension and protection and unspoken feeling. It was fire and safety all at once. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "This is a complication," he murmured, his forehead resting against hers. "The best kind," she whispered back. The empire of the Steel Ravens did not fall. It adapted. It grew stronger, in a way, because its president had something real to fight for beyond money and territory. The legitimate garage business expanded. The less legitimate ventures became more careful, more precise. They had more to lose. Ledger still made calculations, but now the biggest variables in every equation were a little girl's smile and a woman's touch. He still settled debts with an iron fist when necessary, but the most important account, the one opened with $127 in a glittery purse, remained forever in the black, paid in full every day with report cards, quiet family dinners, and the fierce, protected love that had reshaped not just their lives, but the very streets they called home. One evening, almost a year to the day since she'd walked into the clubhouse, Lily was doing her math homework at the Ravens bar under Paul's supervision. Elena was in the office with Ledger, going over bills. The club was quiet. Lily looked up at Paul. "Is my dad a bad man?" Paul put down his pencil. He thought carefully. "The world ain't split into good men and bad men, Lily. It's split into those who protect their own and those who prey on the weak. Your dad, he used to just protect his business. Now he protects you, and that makes him the right kind of man for us." Lily smiled, satisfied. She went back to her fractions, safe in the heart of the empire her father had built, an empire that had, for her, built a home. The peace was a solid, warm thing. It lived in the aroma of Elena's coffee in the clubhouse office, in the sound of Lily's laughter echoing through the garage as she helped David change oil filters, and in the silent, charged glances between Ledger and Elena that now often ended with a slow, secret smile. But an empire, even a peaceful one, has borders, and borders get tested. The test came from the south side of the river in the form of a man named Vincent Rossi. Rossi was new money, slick and ambitious, with a chain of used car lots that were a front for stolen parts and money laundering. He saw the Steel Ravens tightening grip on their territory, the drop in street crime, the quiet deference from local businesses, not as stability, but as weakness. A crew that was playing house was a crew losing its edge, he reasoned. His first move was subtle. A Ravens prospect was jumped while picking up a parts shipment. The assailants wore masks, but they left a business card for Rossi's premier lot, Royal Rides, tucked in the prospect's pocket, a clear message. Ledger called a church meeting, the Ravens' term for a full member assembly. The air in the room was tense, a familiar old anger simmering. "He's poking the bear," Paul growled, slamming a fist on the table. "We hit back hard tonight." David nodded, his usual calm replaced with cold focus. "He needs to understand the cost." Ledger sat at the head of the table, silent. He was looking at a photo on his phone, a picture Lily had drawn of the three of them outside her school. He locked the screen and looked at his men. "No," he said. A murmur of disbelief went around the table. "No," Paul echoed. "Ledger, he hit one of ours on our turf. The rules are clear." "The rules have changed," Ledger said, his voice cutting through the noise. "Rossi wants a war. He wants us to come in guns blazing, loud and messy. That brings heat, cops, feds, headlines. That puts a target on everything we've built here, on our families, on my family." He let that sink in. The word family held a new weight in the room. "So we let him get away with it?" Another member, James, asked, frustration evident. "We don't let him get away with anything," Ledger said, a cold, calculating smile touching his lips. It was the old Ledger, the strategist. "We just collect the debt our way. Paul, you still got that cousin in the tax bureau. David, I need everything you can dig up on Rossi's legitimate business licenses, his property records, his trash collection contracts. Everything." He laid out a plan not of brute force, but of slow, meticulous pressure. It was a corporate takeover disguised as a street war. They would attack not Rossi's thugs, but his livelihood. Anonymous tips to regulatory agencies. Key suppliers suddenly becoming unavailable. Mysterious, repeated audits of his bookkeeping. "We choke him out with paperwork and red tape," Ledger finished. "He'll spend so much time fighting fires, he won't have the energy or the cash to fight us. and he'll never see the hand that's strangling him. It was brilliant. It was also deeply unsatisfying to men who were used to settling scores with their fists, but they trusted Ledger. They'd seen the results of his calculations for years. "And the prospect?" David asked. "He gets a bonus, and the satisfaction of watching Rossi's empire crumble from the inside out," Ledger said. He stood up. "The Ravens' empire isn't giving up an inch. We're just defending it smarter, for everyone." The campaign began. It was quiet, invisible, and devastating. Within a month, Rossi was on the local news, angrily denying allegations of improper waste disposal at one of his lots. His face was pale, strained. During this time, life for Lily and Elena became even more woven into the club's fabric. Elena started officially doing the books for the legitimate garage. It gave her a purpose and an income, and it meant she was often in the office with Ledger, their professional closeness a thin veil over the deep personal connection that now flowed between them. One late night, after the club was empty, that veil finally tore completely. They were finishing up the monthly accounts. The only light was the desk lamp, painting the room in pools of gold and shadow. The tension that had been building for months was a live wire in the air. "The Rossi strategy is working," Elena said, closing a ledger. "But the men, they missed the old ways." "The old ways would have put you and Lily in the crosshairs," Ledger said, not looking up from a parts invoice. "That's not an option." Elena walked around the desk. She stood before him. "Look at me." He did. His gray eyes were dark in the low light. "I need you to know something," she said, her voice steady but soft. "I'm not here because you protect us. I'm here because it's you, the man who teaches my daughter algebra, the man who kisses me in the shadows and makes me feel like the only woman in the world, the man who carries the weight of this whole club but still remembers my favorite coffee." She placed her hands on the arms of his chair, leaning in. "I'm in love with you, Daniel." It was the first time she'd ever used his real name. The sound of it from her lips shattered his final reserve. He surged up from the chair, his hands coming to cradle her face. "Elena," his voice was rough with emotion he usually kept buried, "you are the only thing in my life I didn't calculate, the only good thing I never saw coming." He kissed her, and this time there was no hesitation, no pulling back. It was a confession, a surrender, and a promise all in one. They didn't leave the office that night. The old, worn couch became their sanctuary. It was charged, intense, and profoundly tender, a collision of desperate need and overwhelming love, all the more powerful for the months of waiting. It was YouTube-safe in description, but scorching in implication, the culmination of every heated glance and breathless moment. Afterward, she lay with her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart under the faded tattoos. "The club is your life," she whispered. "You are my life," he corrected, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "The club is my job. There's a difference now." Rossi, feeling the noose tightening, made a desperate, stupid move. He discovered the source of his troubles. He found out about the woman and the kid, the biker's new soft spot. He didn't dare send his own men into Raven's territory. Instead, he hired a couple of low-life drifters, offering them a quick cash payout to deliver a message. Scare them, make it clear this stops, or the kid gets hurt. The drifters, thinking it an easy job, waited for a day when Lily was walking home from Paul's tutoring session at the clubhouse. It was just 2 blocks, a route she'd walked 100 times, always in the safe bubble the Ravens' presence created. Today, the bubble was about to be punctured. As Lily turned onto her street, a beat-up sedan pulled up alongside her. The window rolled down. A man with a scar on his chin leaned out. "Hey, kid, your mom sent us to give you a ride." Lily froze, her heart hammered against her ribs. She remembered Ledger's words, "You don't offer everything you have to a stranger. You come, you ask for help." She also remembered his face when he taught her, "If you're ever scared, you run, you scream, and you fight like hell." "My dad says never get in cars with strangers," she said, her voice surprisingly loud. She started walking faster, her eyes fixed on her apartment building, so close yet so far. "Get in the damn car," the driver snarled, pulling ahead and stopping, blocking the sidewalk. Both men got out. Lily did 3 things at once. She screamed, a piercing, high-pitched sound that echoed off the apartment buildings. She threw her heavy backpack, filled with textbooks, straight at the scarred man's face. And she ran, not towards home, but towards the auto garage at the end of the street, the heart of her father's empire. "Help, Dad, Paul," she shrieked, her legs pumping. The men cursed and gave chase. But Lily was fast and fueled by pure adrenaline. She burst through the open bay door of the Steel Ravens garage, crashing into David, who was holding a tire iron. "Lily!" "Men chasing me," she gasped, pointing behind her. The two drifters skidded to a halt in the doorway. They took in the scene, a terrified child, a giant mechanic with a tire iron, and behind him, 4 other Ravens who had straightened up from their work, their tools suddenly looking like weapons. It was the last mistake they would ever make. David didn't shout, he didn't threaten, he just moved fast and silent. The tire iron connected with the first man's knee with a sickening crack. The man went down screaming. The second man turned to run, but Paul was already there, blocking the exit, his face a mask of cold fury. Within 30 seconds, both men were on the concrete floor, groaning, held down by Ravens. Ledger emerged from the office, Elena right behind him. He took in the scene in a single, chilling glance, his daughter, safe but shaking, being held by David, the 2 strangers on the ground, the look of terror on Elena's face. He walked over to Lily, knelt, and pulled her into a fierce, tight hug. "You're okay, you did perfect." Then he stood. The temperature in the garage dropped 10 degrees. He looked at the 2 men. "Who sent you?" They were too stupid to stay silent. "Rossi, Vincent Rossi, he paid us, man, just to scare the kid, we swear." Ledger's face went perfectly still. It was more frightening than any rage. He looked at Paul. "Call Miller. Tell him we caught 2 attempted child abductors who are ready to confess to everything, including who hired them." Then he looked at Elena. "Take Lily upstairs to the apartment, lock the door." His voice left no room for argument. He turned to his men. "Church, now." This time there was no debate about strategy. The line had been crossed. The final, unforgivable debt had been incurred. The takedown of Vincent Rossi was a masterpiece of both underworld efficiency and legal finality. While the 2 drifters were in police custody singing like canaries to Detective Miller about Rossi's hire, Ledger executed the final phase of his plan. All the financial pressure, the regulatory chaos, came to a head. Rossi's banks called in his loans. His assets were frozen pending investigation. And then, that very night, Rossi himself received a visitor. He was in his office at Royal Rides, surrounded by the crumbling paper empire of his dreams, when the door opened silently. Ledger stood there alone. He didn't say a word. He just walked in, pulled a chair opposite Rossi's desk, and sat down. He placed a single photograph on the desk. It was Lily's school picture, the one where she was smiling, a gap where she'd lost a tooth. "That's my daughter," Ledger said, his voice a quiet rasp. "You sent men to touch her." Rossi, a bully who had only ever fought other bullies, felt true fear for the first time. He stammered, "It was just a message, I didn't mean." "I don't care what you meant," Ledger interrupted. "I care what you did. You are done. Your businesses are done. Your life in this city is done. The police will be here for you in the morning. If you are smart, you will be gone tonight. If you ever come back, if your name is ever whispered near my family again, the debt will be settled personally, and my fee is everything." He stood up, retrieved the photo, and left as silently as he came. He didn't need to break a bone. He had broken the man's spirit, his future, his entire world. Rossi was gone by dawn. The police found an empty office. The word on the street was clear. The Ravens were stronger than ever. Their president had a new, unbreakable code: protect the family, and woe to anyone who forgot it. A month later, the Ravens threw a party. It was a combination of things: the end of the Rossi threat, Lily's straighter report card, and something unspoken but felt by everyone. The clubhouse was decorated with fairy lights Lily had picked out. There was music, laughter, and food. The whole club was there, with their families. It looked less like a biker den and more like a neighborhood block party. In the middle of it all, Ledger stood with Alina in his arms, swaying to a slow song. Lily was showing off her latest art project to Paul and David. Ledger looked down at Alina, her head resting on his shoulder. "I have a new calculation for you," he murmured. "Oh," she smiled up at him. "Risk everything I have every day, reward this you have forever." He paused. "The answer is always yes." He reached into his pocket. He didn't get down on one knee. That wasn't his style. He simply opened a small, black velvet box, holding it between them so only she could see. A simple, strong band with a single diamond glittered inside. Alina's breath caught. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked from the ring to his eyes, seeing the love, the certainty, the man who had rebuilt her world. "Is that a proposal, Daniel?" "It's a statement of fact," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "You're already mine, I'm already yours. This just makes it official for the rest of the world." "Yes," she whispered, the word carrying the weight of all their past and all their future. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her deeply as their family. The one born from a glittery purse and an unexpected answer cheered and clapped around them. The empire stood firm, its king having found his queen, its future secured in the laughter of a little girl who had, with $127 and a mountain of courage, bought herself the most dangerous and devoted dad in the world, and in doing so, had changed everything. Thank you for watching. Did this story surprise you? If you were Lily, would you have been brave enough to walk into that clubhouse? Subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your location might just inspire the setting for our next thrilling tale.